What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today I wanted to make a quick video covering 10 things you may have missed in Jedi Fallen Order. Obviously, a lot of you guys, and myself included, were trying to smash through the game as fast as we could to avoid any spoilers, and so even if you have played it a few times now, there's every chance you may have missed some of the little Easter eggs hidden throughout the game, as Fallen Order is absolutely full of little nods to Star Wars lore. Now, this goes without saying, but if you are trying to avoid spoilers, then I would definitely recommend clicking off the video now, as I can't guarantee that some stuff won't be spoiled in this video. But without wasting any more time, we are going to go ahead and get stuck right into it. So the first thing you may have missed, and this is super early in the game, it's actually in the opening sequence, is that you can trigger a little Easter egg where you can actually hear Palpatine say execute Order 66. After you save Prof and there's that initial cutscene on the train, you follow Prof to the end of the hallway, and then he obviously walks through that door that you can't actually get through. Now, this might sound weird, and shout out to my guy Charm for letting me know about this, but if you actually stand there and repeatedly press the button to open the door 66 times in a row, you can actually hear a little soundbite of Palpatine giving the orders, which I thought was definitely pretty cool.
Execute Order 66.
Moving on to number 2 on the list, and remember this is in no particular order, but throughout the game you can actually find upgrades for BD1 scattered around workbenches throughout each map, and one of those upgrades gives BD the ability to actually hack the KX series security droids and essentially turn them into a teammate until they die. Once you have unlocked this upgrade, if you try and find some KX series droids to hack, eventually you'll hear BD1 singing the tune of a very familiar song. Again, definitely something very minor, but the little details like this do all add up in the long run. Now, moving on to number 3, and this is arguably the biggest bombshell of them all, which is that Fallen Order heavily hints towards the planet of ILUM actually being the same planet that later becomes known as Starkiller Base. For those who have watched the Clone Wars, ILUM will be a very familiar planet to you, as there are a few episodes revolved around this planet where a few of the younglings have to come and find their kyber crystals on ILUM in order to create their first lightsaber. One thing that you may have missed though, as it actually doesn't show it on your first trip to ILUM, is that the planet is actually being completely gutted, which can be seen by the enormous trench on the surface of the planet, and you can even see this trench up close and personal throughout part of the mission here as well. Now obviously this doesn't confirm it on its own, I'm sure there's every chance that some other planets have been gutted like this as well, but the closer you look, the more it actually makes sense. Just looking on the Star Wars wiki, it mentions that both planets are in the unknown regions, both within the 7G sector, and surprisingly enough, both planets are exactly the same size, coming in with a diameter of 660 kilometers. Now, not only that, but if you look closely at the actual trenches as well, you can see the slight deviation in the trench in that middle section where the actual cannon is, and this is exactly the same on both ILUM and Starkiller Base. There has been no official confirmation yet, but let's be completely honest here, this proves that ILUM was eventually turned into Starkiller Base, which is something that wasn't actually known before the game. Moving on to number 4 on the list, and this one revolves around the Ninth Sister and why her foot is actually bionic rather than her actual foot. For those who don't know, the Ninth Sister wasn't actually just made up for this game, she was already a canon character in the Vader 2017 comic series, when Vader is first introduced to the Inquisitorius. Early on in his training of the Inquisitors, he actually batters them all pretty badly, cutting off limbs of many of the brothers and sisters in order to teach them a lesson about loss. Later on in, I think, issue number 16 or 17, the 6th brother and the 9th sister are actually having another training session, and he cuts her foot off during the session, which is actually why she has the red bionic leg during the game. Now, when you actually cut her hand off during the boss fight, you can even hear her mentioning this lesson that Vader taught them during their training.
Being an Inquisitor taught me no setback is too great. When you've already lost yourself, a limb's easy.
Moving on now to number 5, and this is yet another Clone Wars reference that can be found throughout the planet of Dathomir. Scattered around the map are paintings on the walls that resemble those of sort of tribal paintings, and at first glance they might not look like all that much, but taking a closer look, these are actually meant to be paintings of General Grievous when he attacked Dathomir under Dooku's orders. You can see some where there's a tall man with heaps of arms all around him, and then below that there are just regular people running away in fear, which are obviously just meant to resemble the Night Sisters. There are some that I guess are meant to resemble his face, and then there are some that are just straight up a guy with 4 arms standing there. Merrin actually mentions this right before you fight Malicos as well, talking about the attack on Dathomir when she was just a child.
I was only a child when they attacked. An armored warrior brandishing this descended upon us and cut down my people, my sisters.
The armoured warrior that she mentioned was in fact General Grievous during the massacre episode of the Clone Wars in Season 4. Moving on to number 6, and fittingly this is actually another one in reference to Order 66. During that Order 66 sequence in Fallen Order, before it actually starts, if you listen to the two clones talking in the hallway area, one of them mentions that they're actually getting new orders soon, foreshadowing what's coming within probably a minute or two of this conversation.
I heard we're getting new orders soon. Finally. I'm ready to be gone from this dump.
Moving on to number 7, and this one is I guess more of a fan theory that myself and a few of the others in my Discord talked about right after we finished the game for the first time. Obviously, Taron Malicos is a completely new character within this game, who mentions he was also a former Jedi the same as Cal before we learn that he's actually become twisted and evil from living on Dathomir. Our theory is though that Malicos is actually meant to resemble, or at the very least took inspiration from, a popular Legends character by the name of Jorah Sabaoth, who is most commonly known from the Legends Thrawn trilogy. The reason we thought they resembled each other was that 1, both characters have long grey beards and grey hair, 2, they both wear some relatively similar clothing, both having a sort of robed appearance but then also having their chests showing as well, which isn't something we really see that often in Star Wars. And then lastly, a lot of it is to do with their personalities. Taking another look at the Star Wars wiki again, it mentions that Sabaoth was quite an arrogant character, which if you've read those novels you'll know to be very true. And it mentions that he thought himself higher than everyone else because of his Force sensitivity, thinking that anyone who wasn't Force sensitive was weak. Now, Malicos does have some of these personality traits as well, since he mentions that he pretty much took control of the Night Brothers, implying that they're weak, and that they only respect strength in a leader, as well as then mentioning how strong and useful the Force is, acting like they're below him because they can't control it. Obviously, this is just completely a theory of mine and a few others. Like I mentioned, there's no confirmation that they did take inspiration from Jorah Sabaoth, but it definitely seems like there are some similarities there at the very least. Moving on to number 8 on the list, and this is another little Easter egg that can be found on the planet of ILUM. If you climb all the way to the top of the ice wall rather than heading to the objective when you first get to the planet, you'll find a little area where there's actually a large stone with some Aurebesh on it that says Marty, as well as actually a hat sitting on the ground. Now, initially I was 100% certain that this was a reference to Dave Filoni, since the hat is similar to his and the planet is found in his Clone Wars series, but it turns out it's actually a memorial for one of the developers' fathers that they put into the game. Nicholas G. Cameron, who worked on Fallen Order, mentioned on Twitter that he did unfortunately lose his father earlier on in the year, and so he wanted to sort of immortalise his father in-game, which I think is definitely pretty awesome to see, and I'll try and leave a link to that Twitter thread in the description if you do want to read that yourself. Moving on to number 9, and this is both a very short one and a fairly obvious one, but some of you may have still missed it, and that is that the 2 clone troopers on Kashyyyk actually mentioned the old high ground meme that we all know and love. I'm sure a lot of you did already hear this both in the original gameplay that we saw as well as on your own playthrough, but if you weren't paying attention for even a few seconds, then there's every chance you may have missed it.
At least we have the high ground.
Now, lastly, the 10th thing that you may have missed during your playthrough of Fallen Order is that Cal's psychometry ability that he mentions is actually very rare within Star Wars canon, as only Cal and 2 others have ever been known to use it. Psychometry essentially means that when Cal touches an object, he can sort of feel its memories and know what happened to it in the past, similar to the way that he picked up that banjo-looking instrument and automatically knew how to play it. Aside from Cal, Quinlan Vos and Karnuk Sin are the only 2 other Jedi who are known to be able to use the ability, so it was previously canon, but it's definitely a lot more rare than most people probably realised. So that is going to do it for this list of 10 things that you may have missed, guys. Obviously some of you probably would have picked up on a fair few of these already, but I'm sure a lot of you did learn a thing or two, because I know I missed almost all of these on my first playthrough. If you guys did enjoy the video, then make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any more Battlefront 2 or Fallen Order videos. Thank you all so much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.